It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on this Victory Monday in Steeler Nation. Alan, how are we feeling?
Feeling good, man. I took a nap, which is essential on these fly back from the West Coast Mondays,
Sure.
and still pounding the coffee, and otherwise feeling good.
There we go. Yeah, if anybody was also, if you're watching or listening to this, I hope that you tuned into the post-game show yesterday following the game and you knew about Alan's quick turnaround. Still had to put out a morning rush episode. I'm sure that people are appreciative of being able to pump out the content as well. So the nap definitely essential. But Alan, let's dive into it. We got some roster moves today to touch on. We're going to get into George Pickens snap count, which we wanted to talk about, of course, a couple performances that carried over from this game, and then take a bigger picture look at the AFC North as a whole, especially because we talked early on when the schedule came out about the gauntlet on the back end of the schedule, the fact the Steelers didn't see anybody in the division until post-bye. Well, you know, the AFC North looks maybe a little bit different than we expected it to as well. So we'll get into that later in the show as well. But let's talk about these roster moves first and foremost. They actually have an open roster spot still right now, and we can touch on that in a second. But Adi Ogundeji.
Monte Adams. Sorry.
There you go.
It's just a
now that you said, see, I know you're joking, but the fact that you said that is going to give people reason now to run with that. Adi Ogundeji was released from the 53, and Dre Jenkins released, and then bring in Lance. Is this actually McCutcheon? Do we have another McCutcheon in Pittsburgh? Is that okay?
Yes, but it has an O in it.
Yeah, how people would always spell Andrew McCutcheon's name. You know, those people that always included that O for some reason.
He's going to stick around. He's going to have to get rid of the O. I don't make the rules. We spell McCutcheon without an O in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, those people that were doing it with Andrew for years probably appreciate Lance's signing in Pittsburgh now. But what's interesting, Alan, a lot of the times you see teams do this. Like, he spent time with the Jets. Is there any correlation to the fact that it's Jets week and they're bringing him on to the practice squad this week playing the Jets?
Probably, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Teams do this all the time, where especially teams that you don't play all that often, and the Steelers haven't played the Jets since Nathaniel Hackett has been there, and I don't think they played the Broncos when Nathaniel Hackett was there. Obviously, you know, they have Russell Wilson, so, you know,
yeah,
I don't think they need like a ton of help, but you know, they're not going to sign somebody they don't want to look at just because he used to play. But if they can cross two boxes off with the same move, then yeah, they do that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get they're on Monday Night Football tonight, are the Jets. We're going to get, you mentioned Nathaniel Hackett, but Todd Downing taking over as play caller under Jeff Ulbrich now, and this will be his debut against Buffalo. So be tuned into that one for sure to get a look to see if the Jets look any different. I wouldn't expect there's going to be much difference there, especially in season like this, but get our first look at the new look New York Jets. Anything else to add about this? I mean, do we know anything about McCutcheon as a player? Like, do you expect him to be on the team, the practice squad beyond this week?
He had a decent preseason with the Rams. I want to say not last year, but the year before. And kind of put himself on the map as an undrafted guy out of Montana State. The Steelers will have two guys from from Montana on their team for the first time probably ever, between McCutcheon and Dylan Cook. Now, Dylan Cook went to Montana, so I don't know if I'm just going to have to keep those guys separate in the locker room. I don't know how fierce the Montana State rivalry is. We can talk to Lance and Dylan, and maybe we can sort that out, or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he's a big guy. They don't have a lot of size in the wide receiver room. I think, you know, Dre Jenkins was also a big guy. It was here from LSU released. About the extra roster spot, man, first of all, like, I don't know if people say this, like, oh, they have an extra roster spot, so they're going to make a trade. Like, if you're trading for a player who's any good at all, you can make a roster spot about 9 ways any day of the year with zero hesitation. So, like, you never need a roster spot to make a trade. It just It's not a thing. Like, Steelers want to trade for Devontae Adams. There are 10 guys they would cut tomorrow to make that move. Doesn't matter. Like, so yeah, that's irrelevant. I think they may be looking at getting another guy back from the injured reserve list. In fact, it might be Dylan Cook. This is about when I was expecting him to be back. They also have a number like Ben Skoranek can return, Tyler Matakevich can return, Cole Holcomb can return. So they have Logan Lee can return. So they have a number of guys that are eligible to come back from the IR. I think we may see one of them come back this week. Or also, they could be looking to make an addition at center, depending on how bad this Zach Frazier injury is. Haven't gotten any news on my front about that. Of course, I've been traveling, the team's been traveling, and I've been napping. So it's been low effort on my part, I will admit, to wrangle that news. But it sure looked like something where you should probably expect him to at least miss a week or so. And I would think that the Steelers would want to have somebody else somewhere that's played a good amount of center. McCormick and Anderson have both done it a little bit, but I would think whether it's to the active roster or to the practice squad, you're going to see somebody who's played a good amount of center brought in here over the next 48 hours.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. I was going to ask you somebody brought that up, like, because it was McCollum in a pinch. Does that mean you think it would be him going forward, or would it be Spencer Anderson and McCormick as the center and right guard, or how do you think that would play out personally?
I think if it's a short-term absence, it will be McCollum. If he's out for the season, maybe at that point it would be worth it to try to move guys around. But I think Mason McCormick to center and then Spencer Anderson to guard would then replace him at guard is viable. I just don't know if you want to do that to Mason McCormick if it's only for a couple weeks. There's not a lot of difference between flipping from left guard to right guard. Introducing snapping to the equation does not always go that well, as we can recall with Kendrick Green. Some guys pick it up quickly, some guys not so great. I think I would hesitate to just move a guy to center if it's only going to be for a couple weeks. If he's going to miss the rest of the year, then I would probably move McCormick to center and play Spencer Anderson. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, he walked off the field. I understand this is one of the toughest dudes I've ever met, and he walked off the field with a broken leg last year. So, we do need to, have a Zach Frazier scale for, how we judge an injury that is not the same as everybody else's scale. But I assume he's not done for the year.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, so let's dive into this a little bit more. This game, taking a step back for a second, a lot to be made about the George Pickens stuff throughout last week. We were curious as to what his snap count would look like in this one, and you were pretty quick after to put out his snap count from last week to this week. Did you, other than just the surface number that it is for snap count, which again, remind me what that is? What was his snap count from?
So he went from 59% of the offensive snaps to 67% of the offensive snaps. So, an 8% increase, notable, certainly. And it was from the very beginning. They came out of the gate in 12 personnel, which means 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and he was out there with Van Jefferson starting, which he had not been doing the week before when they had 2 tight ends on the field.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. All right. So other than that, though, that's what I was going to ask. You actually kind of answered the second part within that, because I was curious if we had an idea of whether it was in, 11 personnel, or, if he was ever the only receiver on the field, if they ran 13 personnel. In those
I think it was still Scotty Miller as the lone wide receiver in 13. That's been pretty consistent all year long.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Okay. So anything to be made, you think, from that? Is there a storyline or a takeaway from that being the case?
I mean, I think it just he was there. He played the most of any wide receiver in that game. I don't know, what was done, what was said about him getting those snaps back. Clearly, the Steelers want him to play Like the whole idea of him, of them wanting to play him less is nonsense. They played him less as a reaction to him not giving a very good effort. I thought his effort was better, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he got more playing time the same week. So, I mean, I think I did not see him. I didn't think he was particularly good. We can talk about that. Like, I didn't think he had a good game, but I thought he was trying hard out there. And so I think that'll get you more snaps. I mean, that's the way the world works.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive into that for a second. Then you just said you didn't think he was very good in this one. What did you see? Why do you feel that way?
I didn't think his routes were particularly crisp. There was the one early on where Vegas sent everybody, have to break that off hot, and he wasn't ready for the ball when it came. Turn around late, hits him in the hands, drops it. There was the one where Fields honestly forced it to him on the cover 2 hole shot, way down the left sideline. Again, though, like those are kind of balls that you expect George Pickens to catch, and he didn't come down with that one. He's now caught 6 of his last 15 targets. One of those was the last play of the game against the Cowboys. Another was a deep shot in garbage time. He's been relatively ineffective over the last 2 games. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he's in his head. I posted, if you go one video up here on the YouTube platform, I mean, the post-game press conference with him is a series of like 5-word answers. I don't know. People keep asking me like, what's going on with George? And I'm like, man, trying to get in that guy's head is above my pay grade. I am not qualified to attempt that job. Clearly, I don't know. Something's not right. It just doesn't look like himself out there in terms of what he's usually able to provide. And I don't think this week, anyway, it was because of a lack of effort.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about, speaking of not having a lack of effort, that's kind of where I want to go next. Talk about one of these 2 players that have been talked about a ton over after the last game. Najee Harris. Obviously, we talked about on the post game yesterday, at least me feeling like this was, his best, maybe, if for sure one of his best, if not his best performance that he's had as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Just when you look at the way that he ran, the cuts were crisp. I mean, that move that he put on Jack Jones is like something that we haven't seen from Najee Harris in the past. The breakaway speed, obviously.
Don't say that. Don't. Najee gets very angry when we say that he was better than he's been in the past. Can't.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't care. I will clip this and send it to him and let him know that that's how I felt about yesterday's performance. But anyway, neither here nor there. I've always appreciated the effort. I thought that he got rewarded for that effort yesterday in a way that he hasn't always.
Let's say this. On a yards per carry basis, that was the best game of Najee Harris's career. 7.57 yards per attempt. His previous career high was 6.7 in that season ending game against Cleveland, Ben's last game, and the end of the 2021 season. So, the best game of his career from a yards per attempt standpoint, certainly. I've known that Najee Harris can juke people. It's not like that's a skill set that he is not displayed. But the fact of the matter is, and here's why I think Najee doesn't like those questions, is because you can't answer the question without throwing your own offensive line under the bus. What do you need to juke somebody when you're a big downhill running back? You need a lot of space. You need a gigantic freaking hole where you have room to operate inside that hole and make a move. That hole, Pat Freiermuth had a really nice kick out. I can't remember I assume it was Broderick Jones because it was a run to the right, but I can't specifically remember who moved the tackle aside, but that was a 4-lane road that he was running down. And so when you have that much space, then you can operate a little bit differently. You don't just have to run into people. Najee Harris is very good at running into people too. And the sort of signature thing that we've seen from his time with the Steelers is him running guys over. But certainly if you get him in the open field against a cornerback and they're going to, break down early because they're going to try to take his legs out, he can make a guy miss too. It's not like that he hasn't been able to do that. I think, and we got a question about this we can tie in here too, but like the whole thing about Najee Harris is that he needs space. Like, he's not Barry Sanders. He's not the kind of running back that is just going to forever and ever and ever make something out of nothing. But if you give him room, he can be really, really, really good. Like one of the best running backs in the league. Good.
Mm-hmm. To that point about the space, though, he also had a really nice move in a phone booth on Robert Spillane, which ended up right before he broke the long touchdown run on the same play, like right at the line of scrimmage, made a nice move on Spillane and was able to cut
Is that when he
upfield.
cut back?
It was on the touchdown run. So
was on the touchdown run, or was it right before the touchdown run?
Oh, that was on the touchdown run.
Yeah, he bounced that one outside. Kind of give him a little hesitation and then use some speed. He had one where he cut back too. It was about a 20-something yard gain where it was like supposed to go left and then came back to his right. Mm-hmm. That was nice too. It's just like those cutback lanes. I think like Najee Harris is not the best at changing direction. Like that's not his MO. It's not who he is.
Sure.
But if you can give him some clearly defined seams and the line actually blocks him, he can cut those back too. Like I think Najee Harris is a lot better player than we've seen in his time in Pittsburgh. And again, like for me, the decisions about Najee Harris to draft him, to not extend him, whatever, are all about the fact that they do not have the kind of offensive line that they've needed to make the most out of him. And that's why it was a bad pick from the first place. And just sort of the fundamental value of a running back. I wonder if they're rethinking that fifth-year option decision now, though, with Jaylen Warren banged up. I know there were questions that the team had about how Najee Harris would fit in Arthur Smith's scheme, and I'll be honest, I think we had some of those questions too after the first few games. But now he comes out and puts a game like this down. I mean, does that change anything for you? Does him showing that he can have this kind of game in this offense change that? I mean, I know you were someone who was thinking they should have picked up the option anyway, but does this give you some hope that Najee Harris can be more effective in Arthur Smith's offense than maybe we had thought coming into this week?
Yeah, for the rest of the season, sure. And I'm certainly hopeful of that being the case. And depending on what Jaylen Warren's going to continue to look like, I mean, they might need him to continue to carry the workload in a manner that I wasn't necessarily expecting prior to the season, because I thought we'd have pretty close to a 50-50 split, and maybe we would if Jaylen Warren was healthy, but that hasn't been the case. As far as like the long-term outlook of this thing, it wouldn't have changed my mind. Like regardless to me what he would have done this year, I would have been steadfast of the opinion that they should have picked up the fifth-year option, had him next year along with Jaylen Warren, and then let him go after that. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that my mind is completely changed on it. I will say that maybe I'm a little bit more hopeful for what he's going to look like in this offense for the rest of the season, because to your point, I wasn't 100% sure about the schematic fit for him.
We got some breaking news here from Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report. Says Zach Frazier did not suffer any structural damage on his injured ankle and is considered week to week.
Okay.
Basically what we said.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised Jordan Schultz didn't DM me this tweet though to repost. That's typically what he does with anything that's Steelers related. So I'll get on that, Schultzy. So there you go. There's some Zach Frazier news there for you. We'll see how much when you hear week to week. I mean, he's gonna miss at least 1 week, but like he's not gonna play Sunday night against the Jets.
Yeah, I would think like with the long week, the week after, especially, like that. I would say it'll, and then they have the bye. So either it's going to be the Giants or it'll be after the bye. That's what I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the bye, yeah, you're right. I mean, would he come back for just one game prior to the bye, or just say, yeah, be 100% or close to 100%?
We'll see how close to 100% he is. But like, I would think having the extra day before the Giants game makes that a little more plausible.
Mm-hmm. We were getting a lot of talk about Broderick Jones too. We really didn't bring him up in the post game yesterday, but wanted to get your take on it. There was the one clip Derek posted about it. You posted about it. I took a still shot and had to post it, where Broderick Jones is just standing still, like looking back towards the line of scrimmage while everybody else is blocking, just like a freeze frame record scratch. Yes, that's me. probably wondering how I ended up here. Moment for Broderick Jones yesterday. What did you make of it? That's only one rep, but what did you make of his performance overall?
It's interesting because the bad reps for Broderick Jones were the kind that get your attention. I mean, obviously, when you're the only lineman going forward and everyone else is going backward, then like it's very obvious. He had that pretty blatant hold on Max Crosby as well. But I thought he was fine. Like, it's not great, but like that's a tough assignment in Max Crosby.
Sure.
And okay, TJ Watt wins this game for the Steelers, or certainly is a big part of the winning factor for the game for the Steelers. Max Crosby had a half a sack and 3 tackles. Like, I think Max Crosby's probably sitting at home saying, I needed to do more in that game. And as a result, like, I think we should give Broderick Jones a little bit of credit for holding him down. I don't think it was a technical masterpiece, but I think he did enough. And look, I mean, Broderick Jones was not particularly good last year either. Like, he's going to have struggles.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. From last year to this year, do you feel like he is getting better, or do you feel like he's taken us? I've seen a lot of people say that he's taken a step back this year from where he was last year, and I think a lot of people overrate what he was last year, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, he was pretty rough last year. No, I don't. I think there was a step back when he was dealing with that elbow injury in the preseason and the early part of the season. He clearly looked worse. Now I think I'm mostly seeing the same Broderick Jones we saw last year, which is to say generally pretty good in the run game, a little bit more inconsistent than you'd like, generally not that good in pass pro. Like, that's
honestly, this is
that's the guy they signed up for getting. Like, and that's the other thing that doesn't make him a bad draft pick. Like, you drafted a raw dude with a bunch of incredible physical tools. Like, they were understanding that they were going to have to develop him. Like, that he was not a made prospect. Like, they were going to have to build him up. He's still very young. I'm not worried about Broderick Jones. I don't know
exactly
why
what I expected.
Yeah,
I remember when they took him that, Derek and I were on I don't know if it was a live stream or we were just doing a video together, but, we were like, you're signing up for a player that you probably won't see the return on investment in the first couple of years. But hopefully you have like a 10-year tackle. That's what they're drafting him for if everything pans out well. So he's right along kind of with where I expected him to be in the progression. And I was kind of hoping like year 3. So next year would be the year that he starts to look really polished in pass pro. And if that still comes to fruition, then I still think it was a fine first-round draft pick.
I'll say this, even if he doesn't become polished in pass pro ever, if he smooths out the inconsistencies and becomes a truly dominant run blocker, like, he's had stretches of dominance, but like, if he smooths out those inconsistencies and becomes a down in, down out dominant run blocker, I'm fine with that. Like, that's more than good enough.
And if that happens, would you say that would like determine that he should be the right tackle?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm okay with him being a right tackle. I don't think there's a problem with that either.
I agree.
I honestly kind of feel like we're trending that way right now. Like, if you ask me right now, like, I'm bringing Troy Fautanu back as a left tackle, I would say.
Which is how I would have started them out to begin the year. And I said
I was understanding of the idea. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with.
I'm just saying.
Either way,
I was on record when they drafted Fautanu saying that he would be the left tackle for me if it was my choice, and Broderick Jones at right tackle. The last thing that I want to touch on, Alan, is, like I said, I kind of want to reset, take a look at the bigger picture here, the AFC North right now. Obviously, the Steelers and Ravens at the top, both 4-2. Teams in Ohio down at the bottom right now, and maybe we expected the Browns to be down there because we did not expect Deshaun Watson to bounce back in the way that some people thought that he was going to for whatever reason. But the Cincinnati Bengals being a 2-win football team and really struggling to even get that second win last night on Sunday Night Football with the New York Giants. Not necessarily something that we expected. For the most part, Joe Burrow's been good. They've been good on the offensive side of the football. It's really been the defense, which to me was the question coming in. But I still didn't see them having 2 wins through 6 games with where they sit right now. In your mind, has this kind of changed your opinion about the division as a whole, what the Steelers' back end of their schedule looks like, or where are we at with things as we sit here right now?
The Ohio teams are Ohio, to borrow a piece of Gen Alpha slang from my daughter. My daughter's actually Gen Z, but whatever. Or Gen Z. Yeah. Anyway, the Bengals. I think we saw the cracks in the Browns' armor, right? Where like you looked at the team and you said, okay, maybe they could still find a way to be dangerous just because the defense was so good. But I think without Chubb, like it was pretty clear they were going to have a hard time moving the ball on offense consistently. And then the defense has just not been as good as it was last year. I think there's problems there, right? Like that's not a good football team right now. Deshaun Watson looks awful. I was having a conversation with someone in Vegas with some connections around the league, and they said that he was hearing it in training camp from people that were like Brown's teammates that just say the guy's got nothing on his passes. Like it's like he looks washed. That's devastating. And so I think the Browns are pretty bad. I think the Bengals are still a dangerous team, but like I just think even if we don't write off the Bengals right now, even if we just want to say, oh, okay, the Browns are bad, like we talked about this sort of end of season gauntlet as this like 8-week block of death. The Browns are it's Commanders, Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Browns. Like, okay, like now the Commanders are probably better than we thought, but that is a very approachable first 5 games after the bye now, I think, right? Like that does not feel like death to me anymore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I know that, the sentiment any given Sunday, we've seen it already. We see it every year with the Steelers, of course. We see with every team, though. But I agree. Like, just on the surface, if you're going through looking at the schedule, it doesn't look to me. I mean, let's continue down the road where you see even let's taking a step outside the division, obviously, but Philly. They don't look like the team that I expected them to. I know Kansas City's undefeated, and they'll probably have things figured out by the time that we play them, although they lost one of their big playmakers in Rashee Rice. They don't look like the typical Chiefs. Now, again, they're probably going to figure it out by the time that we play them. But, like, just the entirety of that stretch that we're talking about, the Commanders, to me, are the only team that are above the expectation that I had for them right now in terms of how
I think the Ravens are maybe a little bit above the expectation I had for them right now.
Well, I was expecting.
I thought the Bengals were going to be the best team in the division. I thought the Raiders and the Steelers would be battling out for second place. And although I think the Ravens are look like they've figured out their offensive line faster than I thought they would. Let me just say that part of it.
So are the concerns for them different? Like there's still concerns there because they're giving up as many points in the second half of football games as pretty much anybody. But they don't have the concerns with the offensive line that you expected them to. So there's still some deficiency there. Obviously, is it just different? What's going on? With them
I mean, they lost a bunch of good players, and so I just think anytime that happens, it's going to take a while to figure it out. But I liked the pieces they had on the offensive line. I just thought it might take a little bit longer for them to come together, but they look pretty good. Yeah. I think Baltimore is going to be a dangerous team. I'm not minimizing Baltimore at all, but I just think, especially when you take these first 5 here, it just doesn't look so bad, Like now the last 4, Philly, short week at Baltimore. Like Philly at Philly, short week at Baltimore, short week Kansas City.
Yeah.
Then like a game that you might need to win.
It's all within what, like 11 days or something like that? Is that
10 days? 10 days.
Yeah.
15th to the 25th. That's as brutal of a stretch as you're ever going to see in an NFL schedule still. But I think the first half of this is looking less deathy. And so I think that helps. I don't think the Steelers have as much, not that like they aren't trying to win every game as hard as they can, but I think like that for example, like the Colts loss, which you may think, oh man, they really need to have that one, or the Cowboys lost. Oh, I mean, I don't know. I think there's gonna be opportunities
Better
for them
chance
to
to
win.
make up for it, on the
Yeah.
back end than we maybe thought.
I'm telling you
Yeah.
what, I think this Jets game is scary. I think the Jets defense is really good, and I don't know that either team is going to be able to move the ball in this game, especially with the banged up offensive line. If Frazier can't go, Quinnen Williams, Justin Fields is going to know what kind of cologne he wears. I would predict by the end of this game.
How do you always view it when teams do make a head coaching change, though? Because there always seems to be like at least a 1 week boost for that when that happens. Like, I don't know what it is. If it's just like morale in the law, I don't know if there's anything to it. Again, this is just like the way my mind works, and it feels like there's something to that. And Todd Downing also taking over the play calling as well. Like, so how do you view that team now?
Well, I mean, I'll separate it in two ways. First way is, I think when you fire a head coach, it goes one of two directions steeply. Either it gets better or it gets worse. Either it was the right move and the coach was the problem and he was holding the team back somehow, some way, and the team rallies around whoever is the replacement, or things go to crap very quickly. The second thing I'll say about Todd Downing is that the Tennessee Titans had under Mike Vrabel a nice long stretch of offensive coordinators that became head coaches and really had like a really good thing going. Arthur Smith, a part of that lineage. And then Todd Downing became the offensive coordinator, and 3 years later, Mike Vrabel got fired. I don't think he's Nathaniel Hackett is not good. I don't think that Todd Downing is some kind of.
I don't think so either.
He's not the answer. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how much it's like different it's even going to look, because at the end of the day, it's Aaron Rodgers that's running the show on offense there. Like, so I don't know. I'm not expecting a large change there, but to your point, the defense is honestly what concerns me more so than the offensive side of the ball. Two teams in the mix for Devontae Adams.
It's going to be like a 9-6 game. Devontae Adams is going to leave this like, you mean I got to play for one of these two teams?
How quickly is Derek Carr coming back? No. Anyways,
I want to never score. I can stay in Vegas.
People are making it seem like that's an option now.
It should be an option. I don't know if it will be, but
we'll see. All right, Alan, you know the drill. Tell people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like and subscribe to YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notifications. And that's it.
There we go. And if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe over there as well. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive and you will find us, just like you'll find us there on TikTok as well. And then find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.